You've recently started using a nickname for our family.
The poop-friendly family?
I thought it was just the poop family.
Either one. I guess it really is the poop family. The family that talks a lot about poop.
This is my dad. I guess you could say we're a close family. Okay, so the second question was going to be what makes us the poop family?
I guess a couple of things. My medical history, for one, and the willingness to discuss poop as a result of that.
The medical history he's referring to is complicated, but long story short, he doesn't have a colon. In 1988, my dad got very sick, and surgeons had to remove his large intestine and replace it with 6 inches of his small intestine, which kept him alive, but also made his trips to the bathroom way more frequent. And since I was born 6 years later, that's how it's been as long as I've been alive, and as long as my parents have been married. So your husband has started referring to us occasionally as the poop family. How do you feel about that nickname?
I don't love it.
Why not?
It's fine among the family. I was sort of raised where you don't talk about that sort of stuff in public, like money or how much you make, that kind of thing.
But it seems like you guys didn't talk about it in private that much either.
No, we didn't, but we also didn't have issues with it like this family has.
That's my mom. She doesn't call us the poop family, but she does acknowledge that our family's relationship to the bathroom might be different than that of other families.
I think we're multifaceted and we contain multitudes, but I don't think the poop family is inaccurate. There's like a healthy poop culture in our family. Like everyone announces when they're going to the bathroom.
Do you remember that as being since we were kids?
I mean, hard to say, but pretty much. I do think that that's probably been for a long time.
And that's Allie, my sister, the last member of my immediate family. We've been poop positive as long as I can remember. Poop positive, or poop positivity, is a term that I'll be using from now on. It means simply to be comfortable talking about the topic of, well, poop. What part of that nickname is accurate? What makes us the poop family?
Well, poop is a wonderful word. It just is playful. It's essentially kind of whimsical. Someone saying the poop family, it's we're the poop family. I don't know. We are a family of people who are open about poop and have different poop experiences and issues. I don't know.
We do all have different poop experiences and issues. Not just my family, all of us. And now that I've introduced my whole family, I want to introduce myself with one of my own poop experiences. I'm going to tell you a story about drugs and friendship. It was Halloween of 2019, and I had agreed to do shrooms with 3 of my best friends in Amsterdam. The night before our shrooms trip, the 4 of us sat in our Airbnb as if we were around a campfire. I had something to confess. I was nervous to do shrooms, not because it was my first time. It wasn't. But because I had always heard that shrooms are completely safe as long as you do them in the right headspace. Unfortunately for me, my headspace was kind of zeroed in on one thing. You see, something bad had happened to me exactly a week earlier. If I was going to do shrooms with my friends, I needed them to know about my worst night in recent memory. I needed them to know about the night that I shat my pants. I'm not going to tell you every detail like I told them, but long story short, I was walking to a friend's birthday party. I felt a poop coming. I gravely miscalculated how quick it was coming, and eventually It just came out. This was not a shart. This was an unignorable amount of poop. I didn't know what to do. I ran into the bar's bathroom and got in a stall, but it was a busy bar. So people were entering and leaving the bathroom and smelling that whole situation. Once that was all under more control, I escaped the bar to walk more than 1.5 miles home in the rain with shit in my pants. Why did I feel my friends needed to know this? I knew that they would listen and sympathize, and they did. But then something else happened that surprised me. They all identified with the story. Not only that, all 3 of them had stories to tell me about shitting their pants. My friend Jacob had overate at a dinner with coworkers. My friend Dean had to sprint out of a high school science class. And my friend Jacob, oh yeah, there were 2 Jacobs. My friend Jacob H. had to pull his car over to the side of the road to poop in an alley. I had felt really alone that night a week earlier, but with my friends, I didn't feel so alone anymore. I told them my story, and they all responded with, "Yeah, me too." They showed me that in reality, we all had this experience in common. In the following weeks, the way that I looked at the night that I shat my pants started to change. I decided to talk to my gastroenterologist, and at 25 years old, I got my first colonoscopy. I was then prescribed antidepressants, specifically for my gut health, which worked, by the way. My doctor also diagnosed me with IBS, something that I had long suspected I had. But he added an extra little bonus letter. I had IBS-D, or irritable bowel syndrome diarrhea. Finally, over time, I took stock of the significance of this night, what it meant for me coming from a family with a long history of intestinal issues, and a dad who was almost killed by ulcerative colitis. For some reason, we're not really supposed to talk about going to the bathroom. That no longer makes any sense to me. Talking about my experience with my doctor, my family, and my friends helped. Also, I got to do shrooms in Amsterdam. I threw up a lot. It didn't go so well, but I didn't have any of the bad thoughts that I was worried about. There's something inherently funny about the bathroom and what we do in there. I really love joking and talking about it, but I fear that sometimes that laughter is covering up some other very real emotions. Sometimes we joke about the bathroom at the expense of being honest. I don't want to do that. I no longer want to wait until I'm halfway around the world on the eve of taking psychedelic mushrooms to broach this topic honestly. And I don't want to run away from laughing about it either. Hopefully, most of these conversations will be funny, but there'll be a lot of other things too. To quote, perhaps, the most famous words ever written on the matter, everybody poops. Every single one of us goes to the bathroom. By the end of our lives, we'll have spent years peeing, pooping, showering, brushing our teeth, getting ready, trimming nose hairs, replacing tampons, existing in bathrooms, both public and private. I learned in Amsterdam that wanting our privacy doesn't mean we have to be ashamed or embarrassed of our experiences. That locking the stall door doesn't mean we can't eventually let people in. Not everything that happens in the bathroom is going to be important, but everything that we do in there is undeniably human. Welcome to Someone's in Here. a podcast where we share stories about going to the bathroom. I'm your host, Ben Castleman. Thank you so much for tuning in. Knowing you for a while now, it doesn't seem like you've ever felt burdened by going to the bathroom. You seem to even enjoy your time in the bathroom for the most part. Is that fair to say?
I love my time in the bathroom. I love a good poop.
What is it that you love about pooping?
It's just a very satisfying, like a good poop, like a good clean poop is just like essentially satisfying as it comes out. The plop in the toilet, different sounds, and then you just feel so much better.
I know. I wish we could have conversations like this for the once in a blue moon that I have a good satisfying poop.
Well, you can call me when you have a good poop.
Ultimately, I'm looking to get to the bottom of why we as a society talk about going to the bathroom in the way that we do. But that seems like kind of a daunting task for my first episode. On the other hand, Allie and I talk about the bathroom in almost exactly the same way. Maybe I can start by figuring out why that is before I move on to the rest of the world. So you love pooping, and I relatively often really dread it.
Mm.
But we seem to be just as comfortable and just as interested in talking about it. Do you find that interesting at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's beautiful.
What do you think made us this way?
I mean, I do think that having a dad who had to poop a lot and openly talked about it, we did not grow up with a model that it was shameful to talk about poop.
Do you think our dad not having a colon made us talk or think about the bathroom more than other families?
I don't know because I don't remember, the early discussions along those lines, but I kind of feel like you guys might have talked a fair amount about poop, regardless of whether there was ulcerative colitis. I don't know.
What do you think it is about us that makes us? But it seems like you think it's kind of core to our personalities.
I don't know if it's core. I'm just saying you certainly talk about it more freely than I did growing up.
Whether it was how we were raised, how often our dad went to the bathroom, or something innate in our personalities, Allie and I have become very open about this topic. But somewhere along the way, I learned that going to the bathroom is not something everyone is comfortable talking about. That inherent in the idea of poop positivity is the notion that keeping your bathroom thoughts or experiences private is the norm. Do you think we as a society are losing anything by not talking about going to the bathroom more?
Yes, although it's interesting because we as a society are also talking about going to the bathroom all the time.
How do you mean?
Just in how poop jokes, fart jokes are just everyone thinks it's funny. We're talking around it all the time. And so we're basically talking about it.
Do you have any idea why it's inherently funny?
I don't know. Maybe back in the day, our early human ancestors, they were this thing is gross. But also it makes a sound and we can't control it and it smells bad. The fact that poop is embarrassing and private and shameful and that's how we've been like socialized to think about it, means that its exposure is funny to everyone else.
Do you feel like there's anything you've gained from being in such a like positive poop culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you know that your family and your friends aren't going to judge you when you talk about poop, that just makes you feel more accepted as a person. I think that is true.
Say it again.
And I think also something that I was thinking about, like why I went from growing up with our dad to really kind of like savoring my pooping experience, is that I have always had an awareness that like you could lose that. Like you could lose the like true simple pleasure of just having like a one big solid turd that like comes out easily and like satisfyingly, and then you're like done and you leave the bathroom and your day is better.
I think Allie is a great example of how it's important to show gratitude for our solid turds. That is, if we're still able to have them. Unfortunately, as she pointed out, my dad has lost that pleasure. How much did you know about my dad's illness when you started dating?
Not much.
So you only started learning about that when he was getting seriously sick?
I think I knew that he had been hospitalized when he was in law school, but I don't think I had any idea the extent of it or what was involved until he got sick when we were dating.
In January of 1988, my dad had a bout of ulcerative colitis that made him very, very sick. For those who don't know, ulcerative colitis is a chronic disease that causes ulcers on your large intestine, also known as your colon. In this case, he was losing a lot of weight and passing a significant amount of blood. And because of this and the pain, he convinced his gastroenterologist to send him to the hospital. You went to the hospital and then your doctor did some tests, correct?
No, he didn't. He put me on a steady drip of prednisone at massive amounts. I mean, I think it was up to 200 milligrams a day, which is a lot.
Prednisone is a very powerful steroid and a main treatment for ulcerative colitis. If you're on a lot of prednisone, you have to be hospitalized so that your doctors can supervise you.
The previous times I've been in the hospital, it was pretty effective within a couple of days. This time, it was not effective at all. And I must have been in there almost 2 weeks before he did a colonoscopy. And when he came in to tell me about the colonoscopy, he looked like he had seen a ghost or been very ill himself.
And he called me and he said, there's good news and bad news. He said, I don't have colon cancer, but the doctor said your entire colon is bleeding and ulcerated.
Your colon has to be removed. You're not going to get better. It's time for you to have this surgery.
How did that news hit you?
Well, it didn't surprise me. I mean, no one knew better than I did that I wasn't getting better. And I was on massive amounts of prednisone. I felt like I was losing my mind.
After seeing the shape his colon was in, his gastroenterologist told him to switch hospitals to Mount Sinai Hospital, where they had just created a new surgery called J-pouch surgery. So he switched, and the doctors at that hospital gave my dad a medication to counteract the effects of the steroids. This definitely helped, but the pain he was in was getting worse every day. My dad became pretty eager to get the surgery over with.
When I asked, when are you going to do the surgery? They kept putting it off and putting it off. And I finally said, well, when will you know? And they said, when your pain is so great that you're close to having a burst colon, which would kill you.
So basically they had like a pretty small window to hit. And if on either side of that window is like potentially a fatal occurrence.
Yes. If my colon burst, peritonitis would have set in, and that would have killed me. And if they operated before I was strong enough, I might not make it through the surgery. And they told me all that. I mean, they were pretty frank. And I kept begging them to do the surgery because I was in an enormous amount of pain. And finally, they said, okay, you're scheduled for first thing tomorrow morning at like 6 a.m. When I got on the table, I said, you got to put me out. Let's go. I was in so much pain. I had never felt anything like that before.
So they gave him anesthesia, and the surgeons finally operated to remove my dad's colon, which, I should say, was only one of the 3 surgeries my dad would undergo to have this J-pouch created. The idea behind the J-pouch was to take 6 inches of my dad's small intestine and balloon it into a J shape. And that pouch would then act as a makeshift colon for the rest of my dad's life.
You know, the next thing I remember is waking up in the recovery room. And I looked down and there was a drain hanging off my left side and a drain hanging off my right side. I wasn't surprised to see it, but it's a little awkward to look down and see your entire chest is covered and there are drains sticking out of your belly. Every morning, one of my doctors would come in with a parade of medical students and interns and residents. And I got to know the head resident, and he was a good guy. I don't remember his name, but we got friendly. And he came in with students and said, you know, this is Mr. Castleman. He's day 1 of after the subtotal colectomy. He has the drains. I don't remember what they were called. And it was touch and go there for a while. We thought we might lose it. And I was rather taken aback. First, that he would say that in my presence. And second, because, you know, at 33, you don't think too much about dying. Mm-hmm. And this was really the first indication that I had come close to dying.
Luckily, my dad survived. He had gained a J-pouch and a scar across his entire chest, both of which he still has today. But he got something else in the process, the start of what would become a family. And not just any family, a poop family. Would it be fair to say the foundation of your relationship was made in the hospital or surrounding these surgeries?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, we've been going out for maybe 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, something like that.
It sped things up sort of because I became the conduit of information for his family.
Yeah, and he went from not really telling you much about this illness to you being kind of like the main confidant. Is that correct?
Accurate.
Going through this together more or less cemented our relationship and made us both think that we ought to be together.
My parents got married in April of 1989, a little over a year after the first surgery. And while all 3 surgeries were successful, they did have lingering effects. Some his doctors warned him about, but some my parents had to figure out on their own.
As a result of the surgeries and the aftermath and the fact that I have a J-pouch and not a colon, I poop probably between 6 and 10 times a day. And it's effectively diarrhea, which smells awful. But that's okay. It means I'm still alive.
Do you think these surgeries or your medical condition has affected the way we talk about going to the bathroom as a family?
It certainly has affected the way I talk about it. You know, when you and Allie were growing up, you couldn't miss the fact that I spent a lot of time in the bathroom, more than any average bear.
The association between his illness and his, like, the state of his poops was clear. And yet, I think because he was always so open about it, it took a while to, like, actually be able to conceive of just the true scope of the unpleasantness of that situation and what it's like to have a colostomy bag and, like, all of that stuff.
He actually technically had an ileostomy bag. because a colostomy bag requires a colon. Sorry, I'm a little nerdy about this stuff.
So I think in a certain way, just because poop as a subject was always so out in the open, I just kind of assumed good experiences rather than bad, which is a weird thing considering just like the family history.
You've assumed good experiences in others?
Yes.
That's beautiful. How do you feel when you hear about my intestinal issues?
Guilty. Guilty as charged. I'm sorry you wound up getting my lousy gastrointestinal genes. And I'm sorry you have to go through it because it's no fun. It's disruptive and, it restricts you from doing what you want when you want to. Probably not as much as it restricts me, but but it makes me feel bad.
It's harder to talk about your issues than his issues.
Why is that?
I think when it's your child, it just, not that I want my husband to have medical issues, but that was a part of our relationship for so long. But with your child, it's a whole different thing, I think, because you don't want to see your kid suffering in any way. Now I'm getting kind of sad that there's a reason that we talk about it in our family.
Do you feel like it's any kind of silver lining that at least I get to talk to you about it?
Well, I'm glad that you can talk to me about it. And I'm glad that you know that I can empathize with what you're going through and that you can talk to me about it at any time you want.
I think most people are understanding of bringing up taboo topics when they cause major issues, and especially when they cause pain. It makes sense that my family talks about going to the bathroom, because sometimes we need to. But a lot of the time that Allie and I talk about it, it's not out of necessity. And that makes us different than some people. Even some people who happen to find themselves in the poop family. Do you feel like we talk about it too much?
I think sometimes it's a little much. There's many other things I'd rather talk about. I may speak about certain things with my girlfriends, women friends, but there's usually a reason or that we're talking about it. And sometimes I feel like there's not necessarily a reason with this family. The way Allie talks about it, it's just, I don't talk about it or think about it with the joy that she does. I think Allie sometimes will go into details or she'll discuss with her friends the size or the texture, almost the way you talk about a meal or something. It's like that.
Do you ever want to talk about going to the bathroom?
I cannot think of times when I really want to talk about going to the bathroom. Like if I have to go to the bathroom, I go to the bathroom. Why would I need to talk about it? Beyond that, poop in and of itself doesn't interest me. It doesn't.
Do you find the topic of going to the bathroom interesting?
Yeah, I do, for sure.
What about it?
I think that there's a kind of like duality between poop is a joke and poop is a sign of our debasement as humans. And like a sign that like eventually it's all going to go to shit. It's like poop equals mortality and just like the imperfections of our bodies. And I think that's part of what people maybe don't want to talk about or think about when they're pooping.
To be fair, when you put it like that, I kind of get why people would shy away from it. But I think for others, like my mom, the reason doesn't really feel that serious.
I'm not interested in it.
You're bored.
Yeah, or it's...
You feel bored when people talk to you about
sophomoric. If you're just talking about it for the sake of talking about it. It's just like...
Childish?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I do it, but it's like, I don't know how to analyze it any more than that. It's like you have to blow your nose, but I don't need to talk about, is it thick snot or thin snot or, I don't know.
I think there's so much to investigate about boogers. I honestly think that the shame around boogers and the shame around farting in early education is pretty similar and like pretty tied.
So it's not so different.
Yeah, I am not sure it's so different.
Oh, God. I mean, who else is interested? I mean, are you interested in hearing about that?
I mean, I'm betting a lot that people are interested in going to the bathroom.
Right. And there's probably a lot of people who have issues. But I don't know if it's going to be as interesting to as big an audience as some true crime thing. I don't know. Maybe it will be. So I have one more question for you. Do you and Allie think that I'm uptight about this?
I don't think so. I don't think I judge people for not wanting to talk about it. I think of it more as a societal issue and a generational one. Do you view yourself as an ally to the poop afflicted community?
I guess so. I never thought of myself as such, but
you're on the front lines.
I guess.
I'm really grateful to belong to such a poop positive family. But there's a big, scary world out there that isn't nearly as kind to poop. I'm going on a journey to explore the things we do in the bathroom that we're supposed to keep private, to find out when we talk about it or why we decide not to. Here's some of what you can expect on this season of Someone's in Here. We explore some of our formative first experiences with the bathroom. You're making it seem like infants often kick poop.
Yes, infants flail. That's like what they do.
I'm struggling to understand the mechanics of how the poop gets close to the foot and how it can frustrate us, even in the later stages of life. Holding in your pee is your number one fight in the world?
Uh-huh.
Do you usually win that battle?
No.
No.
No. And that's why Pampers do help.
We talk to people who deal with shit on a daily basis. I talk to people about my human poop, and you're in a group of people who all explicitly, are interested in human poop.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you say we're interested in human poop, it makes us sound like a bunch of, strange people. But yeah, anyway.
And those who think there are whole other worlds to explore.
You can lie awake at night in bed, not being able to sleep, and you can think about how would an astronaut go to the toilet on the moon. And it's one of those captivating type of problems.
Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of Someone's in Here. I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you again so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone specific or a group of people who you think might like it too. This podcast was created, produced, and edited by me, Ben Castleman. Happy birthday to my dad. Thank you for letting me share your story again. And a huge thank you to my mom and sister for sharing our family story so openly. This episode was scored with original music written and composed by Gabe Grand, who was sent to me by a celestial power. The theme song for Someone's in Here, which you are listening to now, was written by Matt and Alex Schumann. It's the instrumental to Marlboro Girl by Alter Vision, now known as the Half Days. Link in our show notes. The cover art was made by Yeji Kim. Our consulting producer is Shane McKeon. The monologue was directed by Donald Whalen, among other editorial notes. Special thanks to Connor McCarthy, Jonas Weitzman, and Spencer Roth Rose. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at someone'sinhere_podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. If you want to reach out to us, email someone'sinhere.pod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you again next week.
I think it's weird that we like watch dogs poop. Like, imagine if like someone else was just like, all right, Ben, time to poop for the day, and I'm gonna watch you and get mad at you if you take too long.
I've thought about that a lot. I think about that all the time. If like someone else was in control of when I had to go to the bathroom and then like screamed at me.
I know.
Because I like went at the wrong time in the wrong place.
It's like truly traumatic.